Greetings, YouTube. I'd like to bring you some good news today. Do you remember Charlottesville? When there were white people dressing intentionally like turnip, marching through the streets, carrying tiki torches, chanting, "The Jews will not replace us," and standing around a statue of Robert E. Lee to defend it from the evil folks that wanted to tear it down. One of whom in that vile crowd ran down and killed a person because that person was protesting the literal fascists marching through their streets, throwing up Nazi salutes. For real? You remember that day? I sure do. Well, that statue that they so ferociously defended and so sadly had to deal with the consequences, as many of them actually got themselves fired from jobs and lost relationships as people realized that their friends and family members and employees were fascists marching through the streets chanting slogans against Jewish people and throwing up Nazi salutes. Remember them? Yeah, I remember them too. They had consequences. Well, that statue is gone. They very quietly rolled up to it, cut it into pieces, and then carted it away. And when they took it down, they intentionally cut off its face. Clang. They cut off the saber. Clang. And then they cut the rest of it into little pieces, or actually fairly good-sized pieces. And then they got carted away, and they got lowered into a crucible, which melted them into liquid bronze, which was then made into ingots, which are now going to be used to create a new statue. And I really hope it's a new statue honoring those that have fought for civil liberties in America, specifically in the Charleston area. It wouldn't be bad if there was a plaque for Heather Heyer. I believe that was her name, the woman that was killed. So yeah, I heard that on the radio, and it just made me smile. The knowledge that one more racist piece of history has been erased from our landscape. Now, I know you're going to say that the woke crowds, the woke mobs, are trying to erase history. But you know what still exists? Books, museums, films, documentaries, both in the visual and auditory variety. There's lots of things out there that you can go use to look up the vile history of the Confederacy. Do you know what we don't need? Symbols of that Confederacy standing in the cities where they once controlled, that they once ruled over black people and treated them like livestock. And those citizens don't need to be reminded every single day with statues looming over them, saber in hand. They don't need to deal with street names or school names or municipal building names that are all Confederates, or for that matter, military forts. All of that needs to be eradicated. I frankly think that it should be absolutely illegal to publicly display any form of Confederate propaganda outside of a museum. That's where you need this information, in a place designed to educate the public. We don't need it to continue to perpetuate that discriminatory, prejudicial atmosphere, policies that existed during the slave era of the South. But those symbols continue to exist, and it helped foster the deep racist era that took place after the fall of the Confederacy and actually reached its nadir during the 1920s and 30s. Anyone remember the Tulsa race riots? So I'm really glad that Lee's gone. And I hope they someday take down every single Confederate plaque and statue and roadside post. And they melt them down or they burn them. You want to know about the Confederacy? Go look it up. You don't need to have those symbols blistered across our nation like sores. They are wounds that need to be healed. And one of the things you do is you pluck out the particles in a wound so that it can heal. You remove all the detritus, all the debris. Well, that's what that happened in Charlottesville. It's gone. And that's a great good. So let's hear it for the death of a statue. Let's hear it for finally starting to erase the vile history of the Confederacy from the public sphere.